Hello. I just looked on the camera and I was like, oh, my sweater's off. How devastating for a librarian to look frumpy. Thanks for reaching out to me. During the pandemic, we developed this idea where we could like make videos for people and then you could like go back and forth playing them or sharing them with people. It sounds like you're doing group work, so I'm happy to meet with you in person or in Zoom, but let this video be a start. Um, oh, I'm suffering from allergies today. I apologize. So, here's how I would go about it in kind of a general introduction to library research, um, as well as specifics for your project. So I'll mix and match these things. So the outcome of this video should be that you know available options for your particular research project, but also so you know the methodology for doing research like this. And importantly, being able to tell, okay, have I done enough or have I missed something completely? So a little bit of confidence building. So the first thing that I have is what you had written. Oh, by the way, we have a strict privacy policy, so I'll never say anyone's names or anything like that since this is a public video. So for what it's worth, I won't share any of that. So association between socioeconomic status and health recovery among old people as the topic for a presentation in the discipline of sociology. That's actually a ton of good information. And the one problem that you've got is a lot of those key moments are kind of ambiguous and they could have like all sorts of different things. So how do you narrow it down? First thing I do is I look in the open web. Let's see if I have an open web browser open. Oh yeah, socioeconomic status. I know what that means, but I'm like, how do I describe that? If you go out, you can see I misspelled it. Economic status, but Google corrected me and saved me. I found that, what are the criteria? What are we measuring when we're looking at socioeconomic status and we're using that as a metric? Sometimes you can search for that, but in scholarly research, oftentimes they don't want to have too many variables when they're looking at methodology. So they'll look at educational status or they'll look at how much somebody makes, and less so with like the occupation. I think it's the status of the occupation. So I think education and income, you could find more, but we could also try socioeconomic status. So sometimes you can find synonyms and related terms that way. Health recovery, this is something that you will have to be more interpretive about. Health recovery is, again, it's like, how do we measure that? So if we were scientists and we were assessing something and we would give it criteria, one of those is quality of life, but that's kind of subjective. Like the quality of somebody's life might be different than somebody else's. So we'll look for that. It might be longevity. It might be how long you live, which is prognosis. And there's also fields of study. I indented this because they related to the term below. But like nursing homes, long-term care, geriatrics, those are kind of like ways of describing the population, which is old people. You could look at adolescents, or you could look at ages 3 to 7, or ages 65 and up. There's all sorts of ways of describing a population. And they're always changing. So elderly, people don't use that terminology as much anymore as aged or aging or senior citizen, but I hope you discover some of those other terms too. So and you keep notes. I use OneNote as a note keeping thing, but you can use, there's one called Evernote that I think works on phones, or you can just make a Google Doc. I like this one. Excuse me. Okay, so apart from starting with Google, which I think is great because it can sort some of the ideas that you've got, let me show you how I would go in to library resources. And I'll also give you a list of resources that you can check specifically for sociology research. But sociology, it's one of those disciplines where it's like, is there a person involved at any point in the process? That's sociology. So you really could go in anywhere and look at things. So I'll give you a curated list of my favorites. So let's do the library catalog first. I'm going to go to advanced catalog search, which will make sense in a second, but you could throw these key terms in as well. Think of the catalog as a 7-Eleven or a convenience store where it really has a little bit of everything. So if you needed like headache medicine, you can get that at 7-Eleven. If you need a wide array of medicines, you might go to a pharmacy specifically. If you wanted to find gloves, 7-Eleven sells gloves, but Home Depot is going to have like the complete array. So it's kind of like this is one-stop shopping, and it's not comprehensive, but it's got a lot of the disciplines in it. So let's go back to our key terms. Let's do income. Let's have that be our measurement. Oh, you know what we could do? We could say income or education. So if we don't know which one, or let's put all three of those, socioeconomic status, or socioeconomic status. We could put all of those. So what I'm doing with those or statements, I don't know which keyword to use, so I'm using all of them, and I stick an or in between. So if we get too much of one of those things, we could just delete that. When you're looking in a keyword, what it's doing, I don't think I have anything to hold up like a book, but what it's looking is, it's looking for these specific words in the title, the abstract, the author supplied keywords, but it's not looking in the full text. So whatever the author wrote, author or authors wrote in describing it, if they used one of these words, it'll show up. So the next line, how do we describe health recovery? Let's start with our population. I'm going to use the one that you put. Oh, by the way, old people or older people. I put stuff in quotes if I want those keywords to stick together. Since we're brainstorming at this point, I'm not sure, I'm actually pretty sure that they wouldn't use old people as a population descriptor, but let's see what turns up. Or elderly, or aged, or what was the other one that I put? Aging, or, and I want senior citizen in quotes because I want those two words to stick together. So my first line is about socioeconomic status. That's a concept. My next line, after this and right here, so what that means is I want to search everything in the catalog, all 70 to 100 million things, and I want to find this, and then after that, I want the catalog to go back and find everything in that search result that has this in it. So we're narrowing it. Let's add a new line. And let's do health recovery. Another health recovery. Another one is health outcomes. I know they use that one a lot. So when you talk about an intervention, like getting a shot, what are the health outcomes? Well, people are less likely to catch a disease, might be a health outcome. But let's do quality of life too. Essentially, you throw everything in there and synonyms and related terms, and you see what you get back. This is a pretty dedicated search. Again, brainstorming. We don't have to know. What are we going to get? I bet we get, 90,000. 690,000. Oh my gosh. What do we do with all that data? Okay, here's what the catalog is good at doing. Oh, look at that, Aging and Quality of Life. It's the actual name of a book from 1994. First thing we're going to do is we want to narrow that down to our current century. So all of the things are sorted by how they're accessible or what type of resource it is. There's all these limiting things you can use. In research, this is good because you can pick how limited you get after this. So let's go down to date. Let's do that one first. Do you see the date one here? Most databases have this. Oh, excuse me for a second. Hi. Yes. Oh, yeah. Come on in. I'm making a video right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So, but that's cool. Go ahead. If it's something you can do without me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on a roll, so I'm just going to keep going.
Okay, go for it.
I'm having tech help, so I apologize. So narrow down by date. So let's go up to, so a lot has happened in this century. So let's go up to 2020. Since a lot of this is driven by public policy. And then, if you need me to do anything, let me know if I need to log in again. Okay. So when we narrow down to the current 3 years, 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden we go from 600,000 to 120,000. What do we do next? Is then we can go into what major topics it's being looked at. So you can see it's science, technology. Which one do you want to go into? I would say humans is going to be one, sociology, but you can see all these different categories. There's middle-aged. Oh, looks like older people is a category. Health aspects. This is one way of getting into it, and you can find other keywords. Occupational health. Let's just look at all these different keywords you can go out to. Okay, the next step is to, are we set?
Yeah, you're totally good.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know if it doesn't work.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So all of these different keywords are niches that you can go into. If you wanted to go even more granularly, you could go into peer-reviewed journals, but it looks like there's 95,000 versus 121,000. So let me show you another way of getting into that. I'm going to open up, oh, look at that, social isolation and loneliness. So that has nothing to do with occupation income, or does it? Let's go to another one. Now that we've tested our keywords, we know we're pretty solid. I'm stunned that older people is a good keyword. Here's the databases that I recommend. Oh, I'm going to move my head around again. After going into the catalog and kind of sussing out what fields or breakdowns in the disciplines are, you can go into the databases right here, and you could go through fields of study. Like I said, sociology is tied to everything, but you could go in, and since you're doing group work, you could assign each person a field or a discipline to go into. So for example, there is, like I mentioned before, do we have geriatrics? Oh, I think that's a subset in health sciences and things like that. So you could go into psychology, that's a big one, mental health, that's a big study. You could go into social work, where people are having interventions for this. Sociology is the study, and I'll have greater emphasis on this. You could also go into medicine. So look through these and see, is there something that might be obvious for that? But how do I know which database to go into? Well, I have curated list for you. If you go to research guides, right here, most of the librarians on campus, there's about 40 or 50 of us. Most of us have guides where you can look up a subject and you can say, oh, I want to look up things related to geriatrics or psychology. So I haven't looked in geriatrics. Oh, this is still loading. Poor page. This being, I think our service for this one is like off in New Jersey somewhere. Okay, if you correctly type in sociology, I have a guide for you which databases might work the best. So you don't have to know which ones to go into. Just to get you started. Not telling you what to do. Okay. And it's got a handy URL. So what you could remember is campusguides.lib.utah.edu/sociology. And if you go to social research methods, this tab right here, you'll see my curated list. This is what I use for classes in sociology when I'm invited as a librarian to come in. What you have with this are different steps. The first step we did is background info. And we already did some of that with Google and the library catalog, where we're looking up and validating, do we have the right keywords? Next is mid-level research. This is where you're going into discipline-specific databases and you're doing similar keyword searches. Sociological abstracts, I will show you in just a second. But social science premium collection, pretty good. It has journals in social work, psychology, business, as well as sociology. Communication, that one might not work. Family and society studies worldwide. This might be good because they're looking all over the world at different cultures. PsycInfo is the great psychology database. I'd recommend that one. PAIS is public policy, whether or not money or federal or fiscal assistance goes into socioeconomic development to help so people aren't abandoned and have worse health outcomes. And there's the library catalog again. Each of those you can approach the same way. So I'll show you sociological abstracts. And I'm going to go to advanced search because you have more control over that. So remember those keywords that we were looking at. Socioeconomic status. Again, I put it in quotes. And on this one, well, I'll show you that trick in just a second. Let's see what we get. Let's do health outcomes. That might not be the right word, but let's give it a try. And our particular population is older people or elderly. I want to throw that one in there because I think elderly is used a lot. Populations, is there a canon, a specific way that a population is described? It depends on the literature that you go into. So it's good to hunt around and see what the prevalent thing is. It might be that you talk with your instructor and they say, oh yeah, don't use older people. It's got bad ideas tied to it. This one is a scholarly database, and if you limit to peer-reviewed, you'll avoid dissertations, which we don't want. We want stuff that's been published and peer-reviewed versus an individual that's put up something and a college has produced it. What do we get? I'm tenting my hands like Mr. Burns. Look at that, 1,000 results. Ooh, there's a word I hadn't thought of, hardship. Oh, there's another word, sociodemographic. As you go, you're going to run into other vocabulary that helps you narrow it down even farther. So it might not be socioeconomic. It might be, oh, there you can see him presenting to the Senate. Older adults. See how you have to build your vocabulary as you go. Another critical thing is you can see in the scope of literature what the interest has been in your topic or the keywords that you're showing up. It's fascinating. There was a big peak in 2011. What happened in 2011? It was a big, great recession. And so all of a sudden, was there a generation of people being left behind in social services? Those questions were being asked. What happened in 2016, 2017? We had a president that was making all sorts of promises, as presidents do. So what happens when we get up to now? Something to be aware of is this current year. It doesn't mean there's a big drop. It's only March or April now. And we can just update. Let's see what has happened in the last 2 years. The drum roll. 130. That's pretty sustainable, where you could go through and say determinants of overnight stay in health centers and length of admission. That's a criteria for health outcomes, or what was the word that you used? Health recovery. So you can say health recovery and then use this article to back up any claims that you have. And their criteria is if somebody has to stay overnight in a hospital, which costs a lot of money and it's complicated for insurance, and duration of stay. That might be the criteria or an example of criteria that you could use. Oh, seniors, that's the word that I was trying to remember. Seniors needs to go on my list. Not senior citizen, just seniors. But there they describe their population. Isn't that cool? If you see the full text PDF, that first page of a scholarly article is going to describe everything that you need, and then the next 75 pages are going to be methodology and data and all sorts of stuff like that. So as you and your group go together with this, only consider like the first little bit if you're going to be using it, especially as in an undergrad project. I don't think you have to go into the methodology or the data that strictly. You can realize that it's been a peer-reviewed article, and you can take what they have presented as already been vetted in that peer-reviewed process, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, lower income households. So it can be, there's a new keyword. So this is something you negotiate as you go. What do you do with these articles? There's a citation generator that'll get you an APA citation or whatever style you want under the sun. What do you do if you find an article that's the perfect article? You can go back and you can click on the author, you can click on the keywords, you can click on the journal. There's all sorts of different ways of going in. You can also go down and look at subjects again. So out of these 130 articles, what are the most popular subjects being used? Are you going to let me see this? Health status, that might be a good one to go into. But these are all official keywords being used by the articles that were in our search results. So you can use that to negotiate. And if you like one, ooh, I didn't think about well-being. So here's all the keywords. The keywords are what the authors deem the most important thing about the article itself. So there's examples of health. There's inequality. There's minority and ethnic groups, which is a population, and so on and so on and so on. And I'm happy to help you negotiate and how to use these articles too, but that might fall under what your instructor talks about as well. So let's go back to that guide. Let me show you one more thing. if you're on the video still, this is one more thing you could do. It might be advisable as a group to watch the video together and then I'll type as you go and then see what you can come up with by the end of the video. Normally this is what I would do in a classroom. Okay, so this one's good, this one's good, this one's good. This one's good, this one's good. But what if you want to find the most important article? Scopus and Web of Science do similar things. This is step 3. This is the frosting on the cake. Normally, we don't get to this part in classes. But say you found the perfect keywords. How do we find what the best articles are? This is all peer-reviewed, and it's all top-tier journals, so the great, most respected journals. And you can add search fields. It starts in like that advanced search. So let's do elderly or seniors or aged. And then we'll do that health outcomes again. That worked really good. Health outcomes. And let's add another one. It was socioeconomic. Socioeconomic. Oh, you know what? I don't need quote marks around it if it's just a single word. Socioeconomic or sociodemographic. Is socioeconomic hyphenated? I don't know which one it is, so I'm going to put those in. Oh yeah, let's do or well-being. Remember we learned that new keyword. Okay. What are the greatest articles on this topic? They're the ones that get cited the most. So if I publish an article, if it gets published, that's a big deal. But if no one ever cites it, then it's kind of like, yeah. But if I publish an article and let's sort by the number of times cited. If I publish an article and it's cited like 10,000 times, that's when people get tenure and grants and streets named after them. So let's do cited by highest. Scopus and Web of Science are the only two databases that do this reliably. So the most impactful article. So, and I don't know what this means. Allostatic load is a marker of cumulative biological risk. There's studies on successful aging. Oh, it's another thing that I can fail at. This one is so important, even though it was published in this century. Whoa, this one was published 2 years ago. Hospitalization and mortality, so that's a criteria. Do you live or do you die? This one was so important that this 779 scholarly articles in Scopus could not be published or exist unless they cited this one. That is huge impact. Standardized outcome measurement, wearable sensors. I'm trying to find one where it talks about everything in the title. Looks like COVID had a lot. Childhood experiences. I want to find aged. Doing well by doing good. Deprivation. That just won't do. I want to find elderly and aged. Not just people having health outcomes related to COVID. Here's Dale's last trick, and then I'll stop this painful video. I'll probably come up with 2 more tricks. You can do this in any of the databases. So if I want elderly or seniors or aged to be, I want that to be the most important thing. I would look for that in the article title. And you can do that with all of those. So I don't want elderly or seniors aged showing up just somewhere. I want it to be the most important thing in the article. Then all of a sudden, oh, aged, school aged. Okay, so you have to use your qualitative thinking cap. Ooh, morbidity profile. Elderly people in northern India. So this is how we get more stuff that's related to what we want. So there's the elderly, there's obesity and age 50 years or older. So do you see what I did there? We have a lot less articles, 170 versus 1,000 or so, but now we can get into that. This Find It button is how you get the article. In any database, if you don't see full text, when you click on the Find It button, it'll go back to the library catalog and it'll say, you can find this article in the following list of databases. Because they're all interconnected and all the database vendors hate each other and want to take each other over and have monopolies. In my opinion. It took a long time because it's combing through all the databases to see which journal this appears in. And here we go. So if you click on any of these journals, after clicking on the Find It button, it should send you into the full text. If it doesn't, send me an email and I'll help you out. Okay. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed? Do you feel better? Let me know how it goes. And I'm happy to meet with your group, or if you want to just send me individual questions, I'd be delighted to help. But the body of research that you're working with is huge. And there'll be more than enough out there for you to be discriminating and find those specific things that you're interested in. Okay? Thanks for reaching out.